Hey, welcome to another episode of Creative Inspiration. I'm Steve, and today I'm going to share with you some ideas how to make your pitch just a little bit better. I'm going to do that in a bit. I'm going to be talking about the art of the pitch, but first I want to share with you 3 cool things that I saw this week on the internet, and one of them is a new book by and about the artist James Niehaus. He is a painter who paints ski resort maps, and you may have seen these if you're a skier. Beautiful maps of mountains, and he shares some, including some that have never been released, in his new book. So check that out. The second cool thing on the internet is IAAPA. Now, this is the week normally where we'd be gathering at the Orlando Convention Center and seeing people we haven't seen in a year and sharing ideas. Well, you can do that virtually online. You can go to the IAAPA website, and they are putting much of the content that normally we'd be seeing live on the internet. There is a fee to sign up, but if you do that, you can have access to the virtual sessions through the rest of the year. So go to the IAAPA website and check it out. And the third cool thing I saw on the internet is drones. Yeah, we've all seen a lot of drone shows, but come on, these people have really stepped up their game. Look at this drone show. That was the third cool thing that I saw on the internet, and I wanted to share that with you. So now let's talk about the art of the pitch. I have 12, that's right, not 10. Why does it have to be 10? Come on, what's with your obsession with 10? I've got 12 tips how to make your pitch a little better. And pitches are all basically just stories. And look, stories, we all love stories, which is why we read stories, we watch stories, and we tell stories. And we do it, all of us, every single day. You pitch what happened to you last night to your friends. Hey, you won't believe this crazy thing happened to me at this party. This person came up to me and did this thing. You wouldn't believe it. So that's your pitch. You summarize what happened in a few short sentences to catch somebody's attention. You try to get to the emotion of it. It was crazy. And so we do that also, not with our own stories, but also with the stories of others. Hey, I saw this show on Netflix. It was about this guy who, you wouldn't believe what a character. He collects tigers, and you then pitch in as succinct a way as possible this story to capture the interest of your viewer so that they will want to learn more. And so we do that in our work. We have to frequently pitch our ideas, and they may be great ideas that a whole team of people have worked for a very long period of time on and have done great work. And that work just might live or die by the way that you pitch this story to your leadership. So you might only have a couple of minutes to pack all the yummy goodness of your idea into a pitch that then should grab the attention of your listener. And that listener is usually somebody who has the power to greenlight your idea or give you money for the idea. So you want to get their attention so that they want to learn more. So I have 12 tips that I'm going to go through now on how to improve your pitch. This is the art of the pitch in 12 tips. The first and maybe most important rule is say what it is that you're pitching first, because you've been working on this for a while and you're kind of immersed in the details and you've been working on the solution. So you might want to prove that you've solved a lot of these things. So you might launch into details before the person even knows what it is that you're talking about. You might be like, hey, look, it's got a suede cover and we added this cool tie to it and it's got this really nice paper stock. And the person's like, well, what is that? Is that your novel? Are those notes? Is that a watercolor sketch pad? What is it? I don't even know what it is. And so what happens is if you're receiving the pitch, you're focused so much on trying to fill in the details, like, I don't know what this person's even talking about, that you've lost them. You have to tell them exactly what the pitch is so that, that kind of alleviates their curiosity so they know what it is so they can focus on what you're saying. So I have this cute phrase called the pitch glitch. This is when your pitch goes awry and you can feel it. Yeah, I've even felt it. And you've probably felt it. So you're standing there or you're sitting there and you can see the audience or who's ever receiving this pitch and their eyes get glassy, maybe they even look at their phone, and you've lost them. And it's called a pitch glitch. Something has gone wrong with the pitch. You had a glitch, so you got the pitch glitch. And often it can be traced back to this first pointer. You haven't told them what it is, so they've lost interest. Why should they care? They don't even know what you're talking about. Right, number 2 is a rule that we all know. It's called know your audience, and that's really important when you're telling stories. Know your audience, but what exactly does that mean? Sure, you know your audience. It's your boss. It's somebody with money who you want to impress, when you're giving a pitch, whatever it is. But think about it this way. That audience member, just like you do, has an emotional need that they need fulfilled. So what is it? Do they need to feel important? Maybe they don't really know the area that you're pitching them, so they need to feel reassured. They need to be made to feel comfortable. Think about not just who they are, but what do they need emotionally? Because sometimes somebody will come into a pitch with all kinds of baggage, all kinds of things on their mind. Maybe they need to feel part of the team. Maybe they need to feel like they're fun too. Like you're the creative guy, but maybe they need to feel, like they're creative. And if they are, reassure them. Say, hey, you understand how this works because you're a creative guy, and you've included them. You've helped, lessen their concerns, or you validated something important to them. So think about the emotional need of the person that's listening to your pitch. That's what I have another cute phrase, probably too many cute phrases. This one's called the pitch sitch, the situation you're in where you have to kind of read the room and figure out what's the emotional need that needs to be fulfilled. Because you can do that. You have the power with your words, because words are magic, as I tell my kids. You have the capacity to do that. Because here's what you don't want to do. Somebody's needing some information from you. So they've come to you to say, hey, let's hear your pitch on this show. And you give them all these details and stuff. It turns out to be irrelevant because they just need something simple from you. They need to know what inputs they are going to be contributing and how it fits into the whole. So they might be a technical person that just needs specs. They just might need color callouts. They might need. So don't give somebody too much information if it's not relevant to what their needs are. The third tip is tell a story. What we're talking about is storytelling. So stories usually have an emotional impact. And so you don't want to just do your pitch by saying, look, I saw this thing at IAPA and we think it's within our budget and it'll hit our target demographic and we can paint it to match the area and we can put some IP on it and boom, we're done. That's not a story. That has no emotion. You have to figure out what is the emotional appeal of your story. Why do the guests want to experience what you have to offer here? So is it scary? Is it thrilling? Is it silly? What is it? And figure out what it is that you're selling and then do the pitch that way. This is going to be so scary because, this fits into this land because it's really fun and silly. And so tell the story. Tell the story so that you capture that emotion, because if you don't, you're not going to engage your listener. Sometimes the problem is you just have an idea of an idea. You don't really have a fleshed out pitch. You just have an idea. And I don't think you can really just pitch an idea that's not fleshed out a little bit. You have to know where you're headed and where you're going to land and how that will appeal to people. You have to be able to hone it down to an elevator pitch, something that you can tell in a couple of sentences, but there has to be something compelling in the idea. And that means there's an emotional hook. What is the emotional hook? Why will somebody respond to your idea emotionally? That's what you need to figure out. Be sure you know what the emotional hook is of your story and what is the story that you're telling. For example, if you're pitching Star Wars, it's not a movie franchise about spaceships and outer space and robots and traveling to other planets. It's essentially at its core the story of a boy who needs a father. So when Darth Vader says, "No, I'm your father," in Empire Strikes Back, it goes all the way back to the beginning when Luke Skywalker, that Tatooine farm boy, was really looking for the essence of who he is, and he became the greatest Jedi as part of that voyage of discovery, the culmination of figuring out his relationship to his father and how was Yoda as a mentor, a father figure. So that's the emotional core of that story. It has nothing to do with outer space or all that other stuff. So make sure you know what story you're telling and why it's emotional and why people connect to it. Next tip is learn to love your idea. Now, you may have had 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 ideas that you liked better, that for whatever reason you didn't have enough money, somebody on the team didn't like it, it wasn't practical. Whatever it is, your ideas got rejected. Well, you can't walk into a room and think, well, this isn't my favorite idea. I like the one I had last week, but nobody's letting me do that, because that shows, that's contagious. You have to learn to fall in love with your idea. You have to believe this is the greatest idea. And if you can't do that, then find somebody else to do the pitch, because you have to love the idea. Because people know when you don't love the idea, that passion that's not there, that loveless pitch, it's going to show. And so don't pitch something that you haven't learned to love. And if you can't love it, well, find somebody else to pitch it, or else find some aspect of it that you love. I love the fact that this is a thrill ride. Now, maybe you don't like the IP, maybe you don't like this, maybe you don't like that. If you absolutely are the one that is going to do this pitch, find an aspect of this that you love and focus on that. The next tip is face your fears. You know there are weaknesses in your pitch, or else it would already be finished and built and people would be enjoying the idea. But there's things you still have to figure out. So if you're not in budget, if you're not living within the scope boundaries of the assignment, face your fears and deal with that. And make sure in your pitch you either bring it up or you're prepared for the questions that you know. So know what the holes are. So if you're designing a rotating restaurant that flies and you have money for a food cart, then that is what I call a pitch glitch. Because as great as your idea is, it doesn't have any resonance with your audience if it doesn't meet their needs and expectations. And by meeting their expectations, I don't mean you're going to give them exactly what they expect, because that's what you're giving the sizzle, you're giving the magic. So you're supposed to surprise and delight them and do things beyond what they expect. But they have expectations about how much money they're going to spend. They have expectations about schedule. They have those kinds of expectations. And your idea, the creative, has to be more than what they expect, but it also has to live within your means. And I always say, look, as a creative, your job is to have ideas. So if you don't have more ideas than money, you're not doing your job. You're supposed to be generating ideas. So you're not going to get to do all your ideas. You're not going to get to do everything in your pitch, because you have to have more ideas than are required, because that's what you're supposed to bring. And not every element in your pitch is going to be bought off. Not every detail that you have dreamed up or that lives in your mind is going to be realized. But what has to be preserved is the emotional core. So if you have what is the core of your story clear in your mind, once you sell the pitch, it will survive all the value engineering and the transformations that will occur if you preserve that emotional core. So be clear about what that is so you can hang on to that. Your idea is going to contain a lot of elements, a lot of details, a lot of things you're working out in your mind and your teammates are working out. So it's likely there are going to be a lot of things that you have resolved that are not going to be part of your pitch, because the listener doesn't need to know all these details. And so make sure you've honed it down to the core of the idea, and you don't give out more information than is necessary, because you might bore that person with all the details about the fire retardant materials that your walls are made out of, or whatever it is. So make sure that this information that you're delivering is something that the recipient wants to hear and needs to hear in order to process the information, in order to make a decision. So you have to have in your mind, what is the goal of this pitch? What do I want at the end of this meeting? What do I want that person to walk away with? And do they really need this detail? Do they need this bit of information to input into their decision-making process? If you're doing a deck with images or words or video, more pictures, less words. Okay? Because they're supposed to be listening to you. They're not supposed to be reading a paragraph on the screen. So the ideal deck, in my mind, has 0 words. If you can get it down. I mean, you might have a title, but the fewer the better for my money. Okay, tip number, I think we're up to number 8. And this is important. Be flexible. Be open to possibilities. So for example, somebody says they wanted flame effects in your idea, whether it's a ride or a show or whatever it is. And you'd already thought of that, and the team had already explored that. Don't come back with, oh yeah, we thought of that, but it didn't work. Yeah, the fire marshal won't let us do that. I mean, you can give that information, but remember the yes and, the improvisation technique. Always agree if you can, especially if you like the idea, which you did, because you had explored the idea. So you're like, yeah, we think that's a great idea, But we're still working on how we can achieve that. We couldn't do it because of this reason or that reason, but maybe, we can work on it together and think of other ways we can achieve that flame effect. So you're building the enthusiasm, you're validating what that person says, and you're inviting collaboration instead of just cutting the discussion off like, yeah, we tried that. Didn't work. So that's an important tip. You should always be open to collaboration and assistance. Okay, here's an important tip. Stop at yes. When somebody gives you yes, the meeting is done. It's over. Thank you. Goodbye. Here's the pitch glitch. If the meeting is going on 20 minutes after you get a yes, all that is 20 more minutes when they can change their mind. Take your yes and walk out the door. When you get a yes, don't be like, oh yeah, oh, I'm glad you like it. Here's some other great things about it. Did you notice this part? Or how about this thing? Wasn't it clever when we did that? Because first of all, they might not like it once they hear more details. And second of all, what are you looking for? You already got your answer, so leave. You're done. So stop at yes. Next tip is it's not all about you. Usually the idea you're presenting is part of a collaboration. So make sure you give your team members credit. Make sure you give your management a level of inclusion because this idea may have come from their requirements. So it's never about you. It's never about your individual brilliance. And let's assume you are brilliant, which I'm sure that's true. But a great word is we. We had this idea, or we think this, we think that, and it's not all about like, oh, here's my great idea. It's great to have great ideas. We all have great ideas, but they come to life as part of a collaboration. So keep that in mind. The next to last tip is know what to expect. Know what the next step is. Know what you want to achieve. So if you go into a pitch and you get all the answers that you want, make sure you are able to tell the person to whom you're pitching what you want next. So if they say, yeah, great idea, what do you want to do next? You should know what the answer is, what the next steps are. Have a plan. So know what the next step is, because if the person says, okay, great, let's do this, how do we proceed? And you're like, I'm not sure. That's not a good sales job. That's not where you want to go. So make sure you're clear and you know all the questions, not just the final question, but all the questions that might come up. Make sure you are prepared. So if you get a question that's not in your area of expertise, if it's a legal question, make sure you've cleared things with the lawyer. If it's an operational question, make sure you've talked to operations. So you know the answers to as many possible questions as you can envision arising. And so use your imagination, practice your pitch with somebody, and let them freely ask questions so that things come up that maybe didn't occur to you, so that you have the answers to any possible questions. And the last tip is make every word count. Shorter is better. You can always boil it down to the essence, and if you practice, you will refine your pitch so that you can get rid of those extraneous words and you can get it down to an essence. Nobody's going to complain if your meeting is shorter than it was scheduled, or if things are wrapped up and you get to the emotional core, you get somebody excited about your idea and they decide that they love it and want you to move forward. That's awesome. So respect everybody's schedule. Everybody's super busy. So shorter is better. And speaking of shorter is better, I think I'll end right there. So those are my 12 tips to make your pitch just a little bit better. So I hope you found those useful. That's another week of creative inspiration. Thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you later, everybody.